back. This is the second segment of our program, and I now have to turn to Mr. Seno, who wants to respond to NOORANI.
Well, I won't say respond, but piggyback a little bit off of what he said. I feel that the future of the agriculture sector in St. Lucia is in tourism. There is a tremendous opportunity that the farmers are missing out on. We do not import any fruits directly, but we are importing them indirectly, and we, Bay Gardens Resorts, a small indigenously owned hotel chain, and it's to the tune of some $500,000 a year. That's how much the farmers are leaving on the table. Just in 4 fruits, just take 4 items: pineapples, watermelons, cantaloupe, and honeydew. Just these 4 items, we spend about $250,000 buying it from a supplier who is importing it. And these are things that could be produced locally. And it's not that we don't try. From a quality standpoint, we're very happy with what we get from the farmers who we deal with. And we deal with 20 to 30 different farmers in any given month. Our purchasing managers, I suppose, are very keen on that. They don't take anything that's not of quality. But the farmers who work with us produce very good quality. The problem is consistency and getting it when you need it. Everybody produces everything at the same time, and there's a glut. Price goes down, and then all of a sudden it evaporates. You can't find it anymore. That applies to so many fruits, and I just feel like they're missing out on a big opportunity.
But you highlighted earlier about the greenhouses, because
Absolutely.
There's no reason for this.
Seasonality should not exist.
Yeah.
Greenhouses, aquaponics, these are all things that are not new technologies. They've been around for decades. They've been around before I was born. Okay, they've been around, and we aren't using them to the maximum, and we talk about it, but we don't get to the point where we actually do it. I would love to buy more from our local farmers. I really feel that if we, as 200 rooms, have a $250,000 opportunity, what about if you extrapolate that to the 4,000 rooms on island? How much of an opportunity? It's millions of dollars that the agricultural sector is leaving on the table.
But you're a young gentleman, very aggressive. I have a lot of respect for you.
Thank you.
You've seen what has gone on over the years. What can you really do to get that message across to the powers that be, that, you know, we need to expand upon our hotel industry? You know, one concern which I have is that, you know, first of all, to build a hotel, you have to face the bank. Then you have to face the planning department, okay? And then you have to face the contractors and the architects. And I just feel at this point in time, you know, some time ago the Prime Minister made a comment, and he said to the planning department, if you don't respond to a letter, an application within 90 days, the person can go ahead and build. Now, it worked. That's in his first term of office.
Right.
But that has fallen by the wayside.
Right.
And we take too long. You know, we have spoken time and time again about a one-stop shop, but this is just lip service, you know.
That's right.
We need, as hoteliers, to put the pressure on the powers that be, that this thing comes to fruition. We cannot wait more than 90 days to have a plan passed, because we have already done the work. An architect has done, the engineer drawings are done. They just have to look at it. Why are we taking so long?
You know, to be honest with you, Mr. Shastri, when you said, I thought you were going to give me a timeline of maybe 15 days or 30 days, because in my world, 90 days is just horrendous. I can't imagine anything taking that long, but it's the reality we face. The one-stop shop is really just lip service, as you said, and it's frustrating to local investors, but it must be doubly frustrating to people to foreign investors who want to invest in St. Lucia, in the hotel sector or any other sector, because you have to deal with so many different agencies, and the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing. They don't seem to be talking to each other, and it's frustrating. I think these factors may have a lot to do with why we've fallen down a few notches in the ease of doing business ranking, and we really need to focus on that, not just on trying to get a ranking up, but improving the fundamentals so that we can get more investment, because St. Lucia has 25% unemployment, and it's not going to be absorbed by the public sector. It needs to be absorbed by the private sector.
Let me say something to you, just to recap the past slightly. In 1990, when I came back to St. Lucia, it took me 5 years to get planning permission to do Gay Birds Mall.
Wow.
5 years.
Wow.
Okay? And when the project started, every Monday morning I had 9 planning officers with tapes measuring every last inch to make sure I didn't go Now, you know, to me, I've said repeatedly, it is called Development Control Authority. We should take out the word control. Development Authority.
Right.
Because the word control seems to send a wrong signal.
That's right.
And when you go into the planning department, what you need is, you need a lounge to sit down, because we are bringing business to you. And we are saying to you, look at me, we are here to spend our money. Please have a cup of coffee, sit down, what can we do? And as you, I said 90 days, and you said 15. And you are right, because we've already spent tons of money.
Right.
And so there's no guarantee a plan will be passed, you know. This cannot go on, because we're the ones to build. And when you build a hotel, you have the construction side where the construction workers, people work, the merchants get their stuff, and when it's finished, it's a continuous action.
That's right.
You take Sandals, for instance. I mean, Sandals, how many years ago, most of the causeway has been purchased there, plans for beaches, plans for overwater suites here. How can this go on? This is ridiculous. Yeah.
And I think what's saddening is you're seeing in other islands that desperate times are calling for desperate measures, and I feel perhaps we need to be a little more desperate. Anything, of course, that you do, it has to be full transparency, but we can't do things the way we used to. We have to do what we need to do to encourage investment. I think the banking sector also has a part to play, because they're not in the public sector, but sometimes, unfortunately, you almost feel like you're dealing with a public sector agency when dealing with some of the banks. The amount of time it takes to open a bank account, you know, to get a simple thing like a corporate credit card. We've been experiencing that. We've been trying to, we had a bank approach us, asking us to work with them, and it's taken 2-3 months to get a corporate credit card. But that is crazy. Yeah. You know, these are things that should not take such a long time. Yes, you have your risk management policies in place, but you should be able to get through that once all the information is provided.
And the banks are liquid now. But of course, I understand their situation. They have a lot of bad debt. And,
that's right.
And people, everything is contracted. But they need to understand that when you have a good plan, we need to move forward with it, you know? Because what is the point of all this liquidity sitting there and doing nothing, you know? At least the same way we have to be innovative, they must start to get innovative too. You know, I mean, I'm not a banker, but I feel that, for instance, if they see a good project, they have educated people in the banking field, then take an equity for a short period to ensure that what is going to go ahead. But we got to get the economy moving. It cannot go on as it is. What's your take?
No, you're absolutely correct. We have, as far as the Hotel and Tourism Association is concerned, reached out to a number of banks within the financial sector, and we have been trying to establish a dialogue with them so that there is a better communication of certain definitions, like what constitutes a good investment plan in this day and age, and ways in which they can work a lot more closely within the industry. Because in certain areas we are seeing potential for growth within the industry, we are seeing potential for investments, but the challenge is that you can't measure everybody by the same yardstick within the industry. And there needs to be a more seamless communication of what is attractive, what's a good plan, and like you said, explore non-traditional ways of establishing ownership and management within those new investment models.
Why are we talking about banking? Tell me something. Why is it so much easier to buy a car than build a house?
It's unbelievable. Huh?
It's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
A car has a lifespan of 5 or 6 years.
No, you're right. And I mean, it's strange, because even back to the credit card I mentioned to you, I know people who can get a credit card faster than some businesses can get. I really don't know why. You know, it's so difficult to do business. I know the banks are a little gun shy. They've taken a hit from several sectors, including some in the tourism sector. But I always say, don't paint everyone in the same broad brush, because as much as you have some who've struggled, you have some who are servicing their debts and so on. And it should not be so hard as an existing customer to do, you know, additional business if you have a solid plan and you have a repayment policy and plan in place. If you have a good history.
Yeah. Now, I brought up that subject on several occasions, those of the medical schools.
Right.
I mean, I don't understand. Grenada has 7,000 students. Dominica has 1,800. And St. Kitts and Antigua together have something like 900 each, you know? And these are people, are stay-over tourists, you can say, all the time.
That's right.
Yeah. We need also to address that. And we need government to come on board and participate. Government and the banks need to come in with us, and we can crank it up and start it. Because once it gets going, if the bank wants out of it, then we can pay them off and get the thing going, and so can government, you know. You know, I feel that, for instance, all the fees that we have to pay towards, say, a medical school, there was talk at some point that when it came to teaching, that the government would waive that charge, you know?
Okay.
I mean, that's something that should be done. Now look at, for instance, even with the hotel industry on a cost basis. You have, for instance, we buy stuff in the US and bring to St. Lucia. And we are being charged duty on a CIF value, which is the cost and the freight. Already we have to bring the stuff in because the manufacturing is not to the level it is here. I don't see why we should be paying duty on the freight. You know, it's terrible. It's killing us.
And it increases the cost tremendously. I mean, we just got some furniture from the US, and I swear we paid as much in freight and duty and VAT as the furniture
the cost
itself.
of the goods.
It felt that way.
Correct.
On average, I'd say it increases the cost by
35–40%.
About 35, sometimes 50%, depending on how much you're importing. And you know, it really hampers business.
Because, when you sell a hotel room, you have to base it upon that. You know what I mean?
Yes, you do. And it increases the cost and the rate that you have to charge and makes you even more uncompetitive. And on the note of competitiveness, you know, we have to be very careful. As much as we're, you know, happy that, you know, we have some sort of conclusion, it seems, on the VAT rate, we have to be very careful because we are going in the direction of increasing from 8 to 10%. And meanwhile, Barbados has just reduced their rate to 7.5%. It used to be as high as 17.5% in a restaurant. Now you can go to a restaurant for 7.5%. That is radical thinking, and that is what they are doing to stay competitive. They had gone in the opposite direction as well. They had increased their rate of VAT against the advice of the tourism sector and the BHTA, and they struggled. Not because of that, but it certainly compounded it. And you know, we just have to be careful that we don't find ourselves going in that same direction of seeing reductions in arrivals, reductions in competitiveness, and then having to go and reduce the rate of VAT even further to even lower than it was before. You know, to stimulate additional business.
You saw what the governor of the central bank said recently.
Yes,
he wrote a letter, okay? And it should be, what's it?
Well, I think he essentially said that VAT was anti-tourism tax or not tourism friendly. You know, I found that was very, very interesting. You know, and the time, it was very interesting timing as well. So I think that is a warning signal because he certainly has a lot of experience and
a lot of experience over the years, and that's what has carried the economy in Barbados. And you have the linkages because you have tourism, and then you have the financial section that goes with it. So when you lose one, you lose the other.
Yes, you
know. So it's something we really have to look at very closely. You know. NOORANI?
Yeah, just on the issue of VAT and what's happening regionally compared to where we seem to be going. I will admit that there are certain things which are unique to the Barbados model, which may not, you know, apply to the St. Lucian context. But it's very telling when you look at statistics which seem to indicate that under the VAT regime there is an increase in tax revenue. But then regrettably there seemed to be a similar increase in expenditure at the end of the day. And that is something that you have to be very mindful of to avoid, because if you're looking to raise your revenue in order to pay down your debt, I think by extension you have to be mindful that expenditures are climbing along with your revenue.
And I mean, I pulled up some very telling statistics from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank website. As I think I mentioned to you earlier, I believe in Michael Bloomberg's you know, mantra, in God we trust, and everyone else please bring data. So before VAT was put in place, the first full year was 2013, of course. The average current revenue for the government of St. Lucia was somewhere between 770 million, and it peaked at 816 million in 2011. The first year of VAT, 2013, the first full year, calendar year that is, not fiscal year, St. Lucia generated 862.98 million in revenue, a record. We've never generated more revenue before. And a lot of that came as a result of about $300 million in VAT. But the sad thing is we also set another record. Current expenditure, 841 million. So, and that was as a result of record expenditures on personal emoluments, which are salaries and benefits, 370 million. It's never been that high before. Goods and services, 163 million. And interest payments, 134 million. These three items are about 75% of our expenditure.
Wow.
So here we are, you know, getting certainly more revenues being generated from VAT than the taxes it replaced. And these stats are all on the ECCB website for anyone to see. We've generated more revenue than ever, but we are spending it just as fast as we're making it.
You generated more revenue, but you know what has happened? Many businesses have gone down.
Yeah, well, income tax revenue is down, which is surely personal and corporate income tax levels are down. Company income tax was just 62 million, and that's the lowest it's been in a very long, since 2006. Right? Personal income tax, 93 million, were the same. Duties were down a bit as well. Yeah. So I'm sure that when the government does this budget, they'll present similar stats, maybe a little different because year, this is calendar year and they'll present fiscal year, but it should show a very similar trend. That is, we have to be very careful because St. Lucia is already one of the highest taxed economies in the OECS.
Is that right?
Yes, we have one of the higher. People focus so much on the debt to GDP ratio, but we have to look at also the tax revenue to GDP ratio.
Okay.
We're a very highly taxed economy, and one of the issue clearly is that we don't need to squeeze more tax revenue out of it per se. We have to find ways to grow the economy, which will in turn grow government's tax revenue, because the government's main source of revenue is a transaction-based tax, VAT, which is directly related to how much economic activity we have.
Before you close off, one quick question for you. What do you think of what's happening in St. Kitts as far as the passport situation is, where people are given passports for income? I understand that St. Kitts has 1.1 billion US dollars in a lockbox now.
Okay.
And as you know, one of the most high-class, is it Hilton Hotels? Yeah, no, the one that was here before is going in. Which? Four Seasons? Yeah. There's a very high-class Four Seasons hotel going into St. There is, which is going to bring St. Kitts to another level. Now, I know there are implications as far as that is concerned, but again, we have to start thinking outside of the box, because you know it is not business as usual. People are thinking differently, and we live in a computer world now. I mean, everything has changed. So we must change too.
We must, yeah. In all aspects, in our marketing strategies, everything. We have to move with the times, because everybody is looking online, you know, for their travel and so on. And that's something we really need to do a little bit of a better job in. I know I probably haven't answered your question on St. Kitts specifically.
But maybe the next guest can come in.
Yes.
We must now end our second segment. This is Open Mic, and we've taken a break for our commercial.